Smart 24, Driving Business.
Thank you so much for staying tuned and for watching Smart 24 TV. I'm still with Dr. Mugisha Bazira Henry, who is the Executive Director of the Water Governance Institute. Tonight, we are discussing climate change and its link to economic growth and Uganda's position at the moment. Dr. Henry, we have a few questions that we would want some of them answered before moving ahead. Sophia Oine is asking what lessons we are drawing from the other countries that have faced adverse climate change effects, taking Turkey and Brazil as an example, and if we can apply this in Uganda. If a 5.6, God forbid, earthquake hit Uganda, how can we respond? Could we be able to respond the way they did? I know they're still having a hard time, but at least a lot is being done in order to help the community actually to get back to its feet.
I really, I don't know what kind of answer I should be, because Turkey, we didn't need to go even to Turkey or to Brazil. Brazil for the flood and Turkey for the earthquake and the floods, right? In our own backyard.
Yeah.
Yes, we've had earthquakes. I have projects in Kasese. But for all the time I was there, at almost 2 months I was there was an earthquake happening where I was, like every day.
Really?
Yes, in the mountains.
Wow. Yeah.
An earthquake is happening every day. And it has become so norm that when it starts trembling, people just move away normally.
Yeah.
Like nothing is going to happen. When I look at the slopes of the Rwenzori and the communities where I'm working, and I imagine a 5.6 Richter scale earthquake, I just see very many people going to perish. Right, 2 days ago, I was in a place called Karukara, which is Rwanda. And an earthquake, a tremor came. People were like, hey. See, nobody, then it disappeared. So when it disappeared, everything went to normal. But I think if we do not have the technical capacity for us to track and monitor tectonic movement, right? We need to set it up.
Yeah.
We should be having a monitor, a tracker to those highly earthquake-prone areas. I know that Kampala tremors, most of the tremors that come to Kampala actually originate from Kasese region and come towards this end. Can we follow the trends and be able to, make some projections? Because earthquakes do not surprise us. It's a constant wave of tectonic activity. So it has some highs, it has some lows, which can be studied and you're able to predict. So in that regard, I think we need to build that capacity. Let's put money in that area. And for the floods, I said, let's go back to the old practice. Hold our slopes. Kampala drainage, let's have a drainage system that is capable of handling the flood that is coming from the catchment. Because I think we are designing infrastructure that does not have, that is not based on flood measures. Yeah. So even our roads this tarmac is this thick, about less than an inch, most of them.
Yeah.
No wonder 95% of the roads in Kampala are potholed. I'm wondering, we have gone back to the story where it is madness to drive straight in Kampala. You must go zigzagging.
Yes.
Why don't we begin to build roads that have 20-year plans? I mean lifetime. Because that's what you need for a growing country and growing city like Uganda. Let's have, because that means that you are going to, that's the word I'm looking for, design drainage infrastructure based on the flood data. Do we have flood data for Kampala? Can we use that flood data to plan for any road construction? So we seem to be constructing roads just because somebody has won a bid and say we're going to build this road and that is it, without putting in flood control measures. So we need to learn lessons. Let's not live by accident. It's President Museveni who said fools can live in Uganda without worrying. So I think we are foolish that we are planning things in a foolish manner.
Without expecting bad things.
Without expecting bad things.
Yeah.
But with the climate change, it's expected.
Yeah.
And you've seen how water gets into people's shops, destroys property and whatnot. That's business. That's an economy lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's money lost. You see, you've set someone backwards. All right. So people may think that the climate change is a far-fetched issue and therefore will not affect them. But the truth is, it will. And you cannot run away from it because you know Kampala is sitting at what was formerly the bed of Lake Victoria. 4,000 years ago, Lake Victoria was connected to Lake Wamara. That's the reason why you have River Katonga that feeds them both.
Yeah.
Now
that's the link that was left.
Yes, that was the link that was left. Now imagine a situation where the Lake Victoria chooses to go back to its Matwari.
Yes.
Yes? What would happen?
Terrible. I think we had a little incident some time back when the lakes actually had started getting to increase the water levels. You can go to the beaches.
I had projects running in Lake Kyoga in around Nakasongola there, right? When I went and I found one of my friends who was a client, you know, a beneficiary to the project, she had built a house which was very close to the lake. When I went back, she was 50 meters flooded away from the lake. She moved. Now, those simulations, somebody needs to track them and be able to say, within this period, we expect that this lake either will shrink or is going to expand and come. And with the current wetland degradation that we are seeing and whatever, anything can happen.
Yeah. Wow, well, thank you so much, Doctor. Another question came in from Kathy. She was saying, good evening, Mr. Dr. Mugisha. What measures has Uganda so far taken to enhance its climate resilience, and what progress has been made so far in as regards the many challenges we might assume?
We have done so much work. We have invested so much money as a country to address climate change. But all our efforts are isolated. They are separate, single, isolated issues.
And one of the solutions, if I may.
And they are not feeding into each other. There are too many isolated interventions that are not feeding into each other to create the big picture, the big push for the interventions. I wish we can address the deforestation problem because we really need the forest estate. Can we take it back? Let it be that we even have a tree planting day. That every citizen goes out there and at least plants one tree, and plants at least an indigenous tree and nurtures that tree for the life.
But the government is saying we need to construct industries to provide jobs for Ugandans, and the only spaces available are probably those forests.
No, it's poor planning. Why should we be in Kampala? Why should the city be in Kampala? Why don't you take the city out? Okay? So it's not about lack of space for industrialization. No. It's just poor planning. So honestly, we need to rethink the way we are doing things. So we are doing, every year government spends lots of money, but most of them are isolated interventions, and we have a lot of leakage, of fund leakage. So we're losing money which would have actually contributed to the change that we would like to see. Yeah, so it still goes back to planning and governance. which we need to work on. And I don't know for how long we're going to go singing governance and planning, because it is supposed to be a patriotic issue, right? That somebody has it in himself to say, I must change, I must contribute to the change. Because personally, I really love, for everything that I do, to see it create change in society, right? Whatever I do, I want it to contribute to the change of people around. When I put a smile on somebody's face because of what I've done for them, inwardly I smile. I'm happy that those people that I've interfaced with have become happy for engaging with me. If we all can have that, right, probably this country will be looking differently.
Well, Doctor, what to drive to oil and gas? There's a lot currently happening. Drilling started in Hoima, in the Albertine region, and it was kind of like a dream come true. I remember everyone was waiting on TV to see the launch of this drill finally. And while all this was happening in earlier February, just a few days before launching this, actually after launching this, the case that was put against Total Energies and the Uganda East African crude oil pipeline was actually dropped in court, in the French court, and it was dismissed on base, of course, on
technicality.
Yes, technicality that happened. But what is your opinion when it comes to the oil and gas exploration here in Uganda and climate change? Activists have come up to say we are digging oil and the entire world is going away from oil, and then for us, we are starting a whole new project that's going to last us, for example, I don't know how many years, and they're saying we are going to pollute the whole world. What is your opinion when it comes to the East African crude oil pipeline?
All right, so before I can even say anything about the oil projects in Uganda, I want to say make it categorically clear that I'm not a spokesperson for Total Energies of Sinuk.
Yes.
And so whatever views I'm going to say in respect to that sector are mine and mine only. Okay?
Yeah.
And here is my perspective about the oil projects in Uganda. It's a blessing from God that we are even able to have oil in our waters. However small it may be, it's a blessing. So I support all the initiatives that are geared towards exploiting this natural resource for the benefit of Uganda. Okay? And if you look at the volumes that they are talking about that are likely to come out, 120,000 barrels for starters, then that will grow up to about 240,000 barrels of crude oil at peak production. By all standards, that's a very, very small production per day compared to the major oil producers, the Saudis and the rest, yeah? The Nigerians of this world, the US of this world. These are people who are producing Kuwait, yeah? These are people who produce 2 million barrels, 2 million, I'm saying 10 times, yes, what we intend to produce at peak.
Yes.
What we intend to produce at peak, and at peak, that's probably 15 or 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So 120,000, let's say for starters 120,000 barrels of crude oil per day. Yes? That's almost 20 times what the Kuwaitis, Saudis, and the Americans are producing on even the Netherlands, yeah, are producing on a daily basis. So for anyone to come and say we are going to stop this ECOP because of 240,000 barrels of crude oil per day, then for me I see a sinister plan. And the sinister plan that I see is this, that the developed world, some people who are fighting us from the developed world are fighting the project to use it as an example that they can actually stop an oil project from going on. The climate change activists are trying to use the ECOP as an example globally that they can actually stop an oil project. Why? Because it is a soft target. It is in an LDC, low developing country. whose geopolitical power is not that significant, and therefore they can bully you. And so they are using the monies that they have to support a few individuals around Africa to decampaign it. Okay? To me, that is wrong. The developed world has used oil to develop themselves. They have become so rich, and now because they have understood that the pollution that they are causing is what is responsible for the climate change, then they are saying, you know what, let's stop using fossil fuels and move on to renew these clean energy technologies, electric cars and the rest. But you have developed using the oil. As we speak today, there are countries which are still opening up and commissioning pipelines. The US commissioned pipelines about a month ago.
Yeah.
So why is anybody telling us to stop the eco? Personally, I think those people they do not understand the geopolitics, global geopolitics. They also don't understand the global economics, right? And how the big powers and players would like to keep Africa backward, and that you become a net consumer of their product. They would not want to see you grow and become productive and probably sell to them. The only thing you probably want to sell to them is food, vegetables, and the rest. You know. So for me, I support the ECOP because it is going to give Uganda an opportunity to raise money it would not have raised otherwise. I'm only praying that oil, when it comes out, will not be squandered. The revenues not be squandered. That's my biggest prayer, right? But they want the oil out.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm trying to see Uganda go onto a development path that allows it to become as rich and wealthy like any other nation out there, right? Thirdly, the pipeline, to me, I look at it as a road, which makes it easier for goods to come from one point to another, from the production point to the market. So the pipeline in itself is not going to emit any gases that would cause a significant climate change. If the argument is that the product that is passing through is going to be the one responsible for the pollution and climate change, the volumes that we are speaking about are too small to even focus on Uganda. If you want to curb climate change by stopping oil projects, first start with the projects that are in the US, in Europe, Britain, Asia. Come to the Middle East, the Arab countries, the OPEC producing countries. Because those are the people who are producing 4 million barrels per day, 2 million barrels per day. But you cannot shoot down a fellow who is producing 240,000 barrels a day for the next, if you are lucky, 30 years. These guys have been producing for I do not know how many years. Oil production started more than 400 years in the US, right? And the levels we are talking about are the same levels that they're still getting today. So honestly, focusing on Africa was the wrong thing in the first place. Focusing on Uganda was wrong. So for me, I would love to see the oil project going. And I don't care who is helping us get that oil out, provided Uganda gets the revenue it deserves. The last point is, how would you expect France to pass a case against Total Energies, which I think is the second biggest revenue earner for France? They would be shooting themselves in the foot. So whatever case you raise now against Total, in a French court, they will find a technicality to dismiss it.
Yes.
Just like this one. So it's a non-starter. It's a non-starter. Unless you are talking about some other court jurisdiction, but not in France. The president there cannot say, okay, now Total get out. Total Energies has been with us since we knew how to drive.
Yes.
So really, for me, I looked at it as a joke.
Well, Doctor, before we leave oil, Steve, what's your opinion about the entire pipeline why couldn't we have a refinery in Uganda that could actually get us the products? Why did we have to take the longer route?
I think it's what the government negotiated with the Total Energies and the companies, Sinuk, because it makes economic sense to take the crude out of the economy, right? And I want to applaud President Museveni for even having succeeded to carve out the 60,000 barrels of crude oil that are likely to come to Uganda per day. But then he has a big task ahead of himself. And that task is to make sure that we have a refinery, yes, to process that crude oil, the 60,000 barrels of crude oil. Otherwise, I can use the Luganda word, it is going to become byoya byanswa. Why? Somebody is going to give you have said you want 60,000 barrels of crude oil? Here it is. What are you going to do with 60,000 barrels of crude oil that you cannot drive, you cannot burn in your systems? You are going to find yourself in a trap of sending it back to the pipeline.
Yeah.
Okay? So the total amount of crude oil that is coming out will be crude oil. All the oil from Uganda will go through the pipeline. Crude oil. Which will be the very same original plan that the oil companies wanted. Well, you never know. They could even be frustrating the people who want to invest in the refinery. But can't Uganda find $4.5 billion to invest in the refinery if they are serious? Why don't you do that by yourself? Put clear management in the system. Do it as a business. Right? Make a statement, because we have had many people coming here to say we are going to support the refinery. Then they disappear. We try to find out why they have disappeared. There seems not to be a very clear answer. Right? So I think we need the refinery for very many reasons. For security reasons, right? We also need the refinery for the other attendant industries that would emerge from having a refinery.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
There are at least more than 42 products that come out of one crude oil barrel.
Yes.
One barrel of crude oil.
And they benefit different industries.
And they support different industries.
Yeah.
So you can imagine those are 44 industry lines that will emerge if we are serious in the investment.
Cosmetics, you're looking at.
Yeah, even the bitumen that we are buying to make our roads.
Right,
We probably will be having better roads constructed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Because the bitumen will be coming from here.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think for me, the ECOP is a good project, and I would like to see the refinery as quickly as possible. I want to pray to President Museveni that he finds the money himself. And why? Because I also believe in domestic direct investment. We talked about FDI, but I want us to also have a mindset of not always looking at foreigners coming to build our economy, but us, the Ugandans, to build our economy. Can we support our Ugandans to actually build this economy? And they can.
Yeah.
All they need to do is to incentivize them and make sure they build this economy.
Yeah.
Can we go back to the COPs? Can we go back to the local banks? I wish, it's a long story.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. We are still talking climate resilience and Uganda's perspective and what can be done to link that to economic growth. We are returning with our final segment. Dr. Henry, in our final segment, we want to share personal responsibilities that the civilian can take in line with combating climate change. And we've seen so many people in wetlands, we've seen so many people getting to cut down trees, and they don't understand the implication probably of what they are doing. So Doctor, you're going to help us with that line of advice. And we return briefly. Remember, on our YouTube, we are live there. You can still comment before we depart. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.